Good to have you here. Is this one on? Not enough? You want me to yell louder? Or do you want Josh to turn it up a little? That works? Okay, very good. It won't stay. It just does its own thing, Carl. It's actually kind of distracting, isn't it? All right, that looks better. So, doing something a little bit different today. I am not going to play the guitar for song service, and I think most of you already know why that is. I've had somebody ask, so what did you do anyway? And it's just the typical old man on the ladder story. And I went to the ground and we didn't like the meeting. So I broke a bone in my arm. I say broke, it really didn't break it as much as this bone here. When the wrist hit it, it kind of crushed the top of the bone down and twisted it a little bit. And at this point, it's just healing like that. But they said that in another few weeks, if I decide that it isn't good enough and I want to fix it, that they could surgically change the end of that bone around. But if it works for me, they said, we'll just leave it. So a few weeks down the road, we'll find out.
The big question is, how about that instrument?
I didn't have the guitar and the ladder with me.
The instrument's fine.
The instrument's fine.
That's all we need to know.
Okay.
How do you think you're going to be able to?
I think I will on Wednesday, the first day after I was told I could play the guitar. I had a guitar class scheduled, so I went, and at first I was playing just one finger at a time and strumming 2 or 3 strings to kind of play along with the kids, but by the time the hour was up, it's like, I'm playing a D chord. I just played a bar chord, and it's like, whoa, but then my wrist was so sore and tired afterwards. I thought, I'm going to take it a little easier for a little while longer, but yeah, I think I'll be able to. So anyway, we want you to join us singing today. We've got a few songs. I brought Emmeline with me. Some of you remember Emmeline from VBS, and she's going to play the guitar. I thank you very much for coming. Becky and Carl have come along as well, and always love dragging them down here to Long Creek with me, and they seem to be so willing to come.
I love being dragged.
So we're going to start singing. We're going to do the song Shine, Jesus, Shine to begin with. So sing along with us.
As we gaze on your kingdom,
Our next song is El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Elyon Adonai. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Elyon age to age, you're still the same, by the power of the name. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, Adonai. We will praise and lift you high, El Shaddai. A little bit faster, through your love, through the Ram, to save the Son of Abraham. Through the power of your hand, turn the sea to dry land. To the outcast underneath, you were the God who really sees. And by your might you set your children free. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Elyon Adonai. Age to age, you're still the same, by the power of the name. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, we will praise and lift you high, El Shaddai. Through the years you made it clear that the time of Christ was near. So the people could see what Messiah ought to be. Oh, your word contained the plan, they just could not understand. Your most awesome work is done through the frailty of your Son. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, El Elyon Adonai. Age to age, you're still the same, by the power of the name. El Shaddai, El Shaddai, Ekapon Adonai. We will praise and lift you high, El Shaddai. Next song is one that I remember Kelly saying long ago was once one of his favorite songs, once upon a time. I don't know if it still is or not, but still an awfully good song. Father God, just for today, help me walk that narrow way. Help me stand when I should fall. One of my favorite songs as of recent is the song I Go to the Rock. And we're going to do that. This is also one of my favorite slide presentations I've ever made, because that rock that's showing there used to show right outside our living room window. And I took that picture many years ago, and it's just a really cool thing to think about. So you do recognize that one, I bet. Any of you who have ever been to or heard of Castle Valley, that's the featured rock in the middle of Castle Valley, probably where the word castle comes from. But the bigger pile, not as tall, but bigger pile off to the side, was referred to as the priest and nuns. You can see the priest way out front and then a whole row of nuns behind him there as you're looking at it from this direction. So yeah, just the name of the rock. But yeah, lived there long before they had even dreamed up mountain bikes and four-wheelers running all over the mountains, so I didn't know about that back then, but it was a nice place to be for a while. I Go to the Rock. When no one wants to listen, who do I lean on? When there's no foundation stable, I go to the rock. I know that's stable, I go to the rock. I go to the rock of my salvation. Run to the mountains, and the mountains stand by me. Earth all around me sinking sand. Christ the solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock. Where do I hide? Till the storms will all pass. Where do I run to? When the winds of sorrow rend, is there a refuge? In the time of tribulation, when my soul needs consolation, I go to the rock of my salvation. Unto the mountains, and the mountains stand by me. Earth all around me is sinking sand. On Christ the solid rock I stand. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock. When I need a shelter, when I need a friend, I go to the rock. Well, as you can tell, I don't need to play the guitar anymore. I have awfully good backup. Thank you very much, Emmeline. You know, it's amazing to think you work with these kids when they're little, and then all of a sudden, they just take over. That's pretty cool. That's what we do it for. It's what we look forward to, and definitely that. So we're going to do one more song here for song service, Mansion Over the Hilltop. I'm satisfied, just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom was not Thank you all for singing, and you guys, thank you so much for helping me out. Casey, I'm going to turn the time over to you for a little bit.
Thank you guys for that great worship, round of worship music. There's a fellowship dinner afterwards, which all are invited to. We have a couple of Bible studies throughout the week, and tomorrow Cindy is sharing her time while she was off abroad, afar. Yes, I don't think there's any other announcements. And so we will have our praises and prayer requests. We have many listed under the ailment side and fighting the battle of cancer. Are there any others?
I wanted to get an update on Isabella. We've been praying for her for years. She's 20 now. And her cancer is back again. So she had to take off this last quarter of college and go home. And the doctors are supposed to biopsy one of her tumors, but they're not very positive. They're saying that they pretty much done everything possible.
It's tough. She's been working with that since she was 12. So you think last year she was so excited to be a counselor at Ida Haven, cancer-free, but it has come back. So, Roy. So I saw it here somewhere. Roy Peterson is battling cancer, and I talked to him not too long ago, and he's been having he's doing really well. His whatever the tumor was, or it's shrunk dramatically, and he's undergone a surgery that's improved greatly. He seems to be pretty happy with his results. So I don't know if there's any other updates on any others, but yeah, he's happy. He said for a 70-something-year-old guy, he feels pretty good. So, anyways.
Well, and the praise for Danelle's recovery.
Yeah.
It's looking much improved.
Praise God. Praise God.
I remember buying her lunch, I think we were on the mend, but
What was the first part?
the kids, Caleb, Heather,
Oh.
that Brian Vivian, Josh was, I know Little Britches had it, Emmer, now Aurora's got it, so it is pretty nasty, so yeah, just that they will continue to keep getting better.
Yeah. We miss all our kids, but I heard you still have to tell the story, regardless. I don't know. It's not up to me. Yeah, all our little ones. Well, if there's are there any others? I'm just thinking, I walked out in preparation of getting things put away to come to church, and it's just so warm and nice. The pickup said 63, but I think the thermometer was in the sunshine, so I don't know if it was. Oh, well, maybe it was. Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, I kneel. You can join me if you like. Now, Father in heaven, we come before you this afternoon. We thank you for all the blessings that you have given us, and we lift up those who we know and love that are struggling with cancer, Father. We know that you know each one of them intimately and know the exact situation that they're going through. And for the others who are listed in our prayer requests that are not feeling well, especially our little kids this afternoon and church family who is not able to be here. Father, I pray that you would be with each one in a special way this Sabbath afternoon. Send your comforter, that they would know that your presence is very near. And thank you for the guests that have come, guests/family, however it is, that have come to share with us this afternoon. And may your name be glorified. In Jesus' name, amen. And yeah, I don't know how about the children's story without any kids, but I can sit on this front row if you like. Yeah. And then.
Is this on now? Yes, it's on. Okay, I'll hand it to you when you need to. Okay, I'm just curious if anyone here in this room is Jewish or has Jewish ancestry. Nobody? Nobody. Does that mean that we're all Gentiles? Yeah. Okay, well, when Jesus was here on earth, the Jewish people felt that anyone who was not a Jew was a Gentile, and they called them dogs. I mean, you were just a Gentile dog. You were a heathen. You were not worthy to be part of the family of God. You were just kind of outcasts. But Jesus wanted, and Jesus' followers felt the same way. That's the way they'd grown up all their lives. But Jesus wanted to teach them that is not true, that God loves everybody. And so there's one time he goes on a missionary trip. Tim's talking about his mission trip, so I thought, well, so he didn't have any way to get there with a car or airplane or bicycle or camel or even a horse. So he walked, as we know, and his followers walked along with him. And when they got to the borders of Tyre and Sidon, they went in a little town. They were walking through the streets, and suddenly this woman realized who Jesus was, and she started calling after him.
Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is sick and demon-possessed, and she's suffering greatly.
And Jesus did not answer her at all. He just went on walking as if he was ignoring her. And after a while, she kept calling, and his disciples came up to him and they said,
"Can't you tell her to get lost? Get rid of her. You've come for the Jews."
"That's right." Jesus answered, "I haven't come except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Okay, I want you to notice something. He called the Israelites sheep. And I don't know if you'd rather be a sheep or a dog, but I don't know. Either way. When he said that, instead of being discouraged and going away, the woman came closer to him and she worshiped him. And she said,
Lord, help me.
And he said, "It isn't right to take the bread from the children and give it and throw it to the little dogs." And she said,
"But even the dogs get to eat the scraps from their master's table."
And Jesus was touched by her faith. And he said, "Woman, you have great faith. Let it be done to you as you desire." And from that very hour, her daughter was healed. That is the only miracle Jesus did on that mission trip. He didn't give any big speeches or preach to a whole bunch of big crowds. It's not recorded. He went there to heal that woman's daughter and to teach his disciples the lesson that it is that God loves everybody, that his message, the good news, is for everyone. And so from that story, we've been commissioned to take the gospel, the good news of God's love, to everyone throughout the world. And when we go, we can show that kind of love, that kind of no prejudice, just inclusiveness for the people, for anyone that we meet. So, thank you for listening. They were?
Was it this last year that this was our theme song? This last year at VBS, right here at Long Creek, we had the theme song titled Do Not Worry. And Emmeline and I have ended up singing that song as special music 2 or 3 different places, and we thought we would do it for you today here. So the song is titled Do Not Worry. Birds that are singing in the spring air, they're given everything they need. They don't worry where their next meal will come from. They don't worry about a thing. So just look around you, try and listen to the song creation sings. Don't you worry, 'cause you're in the hands of the God who made everything. See the flowers in their colorful beauty, they're just better than a king. They don't worry about what they should wear, no, they don't worry about a thing. So just look around you, try and listen to the song creation sings. Don't you worry, 'cause you're in the hands of the God who made everything. Because you're not a bird and you're not a flower. You don't have petals or wings. But there is good news, you're worth so much more to the God who made everything. So when you worry about today or tomorrow and the storms that they might bring, try to remember that you're in the hands of the God who made every single thing. Amen. Thank you, Emmeline. I shouldn't make too big of a deal of it, but for those of you who are old like me, you know how it feels. I have a picture on my phone of Emmeline at about this tall, stand with her adventurer's uniform on, with drumsticks in her hand and beating on the drums in my youth room as a little girl. And it is absolutely amazing to see the change as she stands here almost exactly the same height I am now, and her shoes don't have any taller heel than mine do, so that's real true, being almost as tall as I am, and it's hard to imagine how things go like that. So anyway, today we're going to talk about the trip that I was able to make with a number of friends recently to the southern tip of the Baja, which to some people is only vacation land. They go to Cabo for all kinds of good and bad things, and we weren't going there for any of those reasons. We were nowhere close to where all the tourist traps were. We were on some very dirty little streets where there was never a green thing to be seen, and it was quite different from what some people picture when they think of going to southern Baja. But it was a very, very good trip for us. It was probably, I think this is the 7th or 8th trip I've taken down there with this group now, and I think it was the best one that I've ever been on. I think there was something about the spirit within the group that just made for something that was extra special. And so today I hope to be able to share some of that with you. The place we went was a suburb, if you will, of the city of San Juan del Cabo, and it's called Vista Hermosa. And the church at Vista Hermosa was actually built several years ago by Maranatha, same group that built this church a few years ago. But they didn't get everything finished, as often happens, nor were the locals able to get everything finished. And the family that always organizes these trips made the decision sometime last year that they'd like to have us go to this church and try to finish some things up that have been languishing for a long period of time. The truth of the matter is that most of our group is getting old enough that we don't really want to stack blocks and make walls anymore. We'd like to do some of the finishing things on the inside that are a little bit lighter work. So that's what we had to do on this church. The next picture I'm going to show you is actually when we were finished with it on this trip. Turns out to be a pretty nice looking sanctuary. And some of the things that we did was we did tile work in the bathrooms. The platform up in the front that you can see in the distance in the picture was just a rugged old concrete pile there, and amazing amount of work they had to go to try to prepare that for tile and get the tile put on it. But that turned out very nicely. Repainted the entire inside, and even though you could imagine it didn't look too bad, it really did look pretty rough before we got it repainted. And I don't know, there's a couple other things, but we'll see those as we go along here. So first, oops, there, I guess I got a little, I didn't realize I could start the video myself by just clicking a second time on the picture. Now I've learned something new. I thought, well, we won't see that video. But one of the first things we did was, one of the things we did was change their baptistry. You might recognize one of those guys in there. Some of you might anyway. It's Daryl Haney on his knees, and he comes along on our trips with us every year. This baptistry was built so big that they could not get enough water to fill it up. And so they asked us if we could do something to shrink the size of the baptistry so that they could get enough water in it to baptize people. So what we decided to do, they just had a metal ladder that came over the edge and down in, so we're building a lot of steps in there and other things to take up some of the volume so that there wouldn't have to be so much water to fill up that baptistry. And so Daryl just worked his tail off on this thing. Anyway, he got it to where it was looking pretty good by the time we were done. They don't plan to tile it. It sounds like they're just going to paint the baptistry, but this is where we got it to before we left. And it certainly is a much smaller tank to try to fill with water now. We had a cement mixer that we borrowed from somewhere that Daryl worked with. He had a couple of spare days at the end of the trip. He was all done with his working on the baptistry, so he thought, I'm going to clean this cement mixer up. It just looks kind of bad. So he chipped and knocked stuff off, and when he got done, there he is with his new cement mixer. He was pretty proud of that thing, and can't blame him at all. One of the other things we worked on was the platform. It's a little hard to tell from here, but those steps have nowhere near an even curve to them, and the platform is over 2 inches out of level, And it was supposed to be my job to tile it. I am actually quite grateful that I had broken my arm and that they gave that job to someone else. But the guy, Fernando, is the one holding the level there. He actually lives only about 4 hours away from where we were working, but he has helped us the last 3 years on every project we come down to work on. He's a very talented block layer, tile setter, and all other cement-related type things. And he agreed to take on the task of trying to fix that platform and get it covered with tile. And it was a huge job. This is his wife. She was there working every day as well. She just loved to be involved in whatever came along. This is the church committee that came to see the first row of tile and see whether they liked it or not. And it would have driven me crazy to have that many people standing next to my fresh laid tile. But he managed to put up with it. They approved it, and he carried on. So here he is working away on it. He was always smiling. Just such a great guy. This man here, some of you may know him, Ron Tilley from Walla Walla. Ron is just whatever job is distasteful and no one wants to do, Ron says, give that job to me, I'll do it. And so he got the job of trying to prep all these steps and get them prepared for Fernando as he came along. And he's here trying to chip and chisel chunks of stuff off that are in the way. And another picture here, you see some orange in the step there. As he was chipping off some blobs of concrete, he discovered that they'd put some electrical conduit along the front of the step and then just blobbed concrete over it to cover it up. So now he's trying to cut slots back into the steps to be able to tuck that conduit into the steps and be able to tile over the top of it. And he even got the job of trying to scrape all the old thin set out of the joints prior to grouting. So yeah, everything that was distasteful, that was Ron willing to do it. Poor Jim, he got the job of cutting tile, and he spent 2 weeks just measuring, marking, and cutting tile. That's all he did for the guy doing the platform work. That was a big job. He's getting close to the end of the platform, and that back there against that back wall, he's built up the mud over 2 inches deep back in there in order to keep everything level going across the top of that platform. Here they're grouting it. Got a whole crowd of people in there to help with the grouting, and that sure, they did that just in a half a day. But there's the finished platform, and what a change that was from the concrete mess that was there when we first showed up. Isn't that amazing? Those curves, like I said, those were over 1 inch or 2 inches at times in and out from being a smooth curve. And he made himself a template, and they fixed the front of every one of those steps to get a nice smooth curve on every one. Had a crew that did painting. The young guy at the bottom of the ladder was probably the youngest one in our group. He's, I think, 34. Some of you may know his brother if you watch, I don't know if it would be 3ABN or what it would be exactly, but his brother, I knew his name a little bit ago. I forgot it. Anyway, Rittenauer is the last name, and they do videos of mission projects around the world that show on 3ABN. And so anyway, Jeffrey came here, and he was young, and he had a lot of stories to tell, and sometimes you wondered about him, but he went on a lot of trips with his brother around the world into jungle areas to look at one thing and another, and he just regaled us with stories all 2 weeks long. It was like, wow, you've done an awful lot for only being 34 years old. That's pretty amazing to see where you've been. But he was willing to take the job of organizing 2 or 3 of the ladies and getting the inside of this church all painted. We did have Pastor Hugo. He's the pastor now at the Moses Lake Church. He was kind of a jack of all trades, but I don't know if this would be good to say or not. And any of you listening online, I hope you're not pastors, but he worked like a pastor. Hey, Hugo, if you're listening today, he liked to be here and he liked to be there, and he was never long on one thing or another, but he was always busy and he was always cheerful, and I just loved having him on the trip. Among other things, Hugo was the most helpful person with me with my Spanish. I appreciated his help all the time, helping explain to me things that I hadn't quite figured out. Or if we're walking around in the market saying, oh, that's such and such, and he'd explain what that was for and how it was used. Oh, this is, and he'd tell us what that was all about. It was really, really good to have him along. But here he is helping to paint some of the walls. Like I said, we had several ladies helping. This is Shirley. She lives in Weston. This is actually our group leader on the floor, Sandy Larson. Her husband, Daryl Larson, they were our pastoral family at the Kennewick Church when our kids were young. And Pastor Larson, her husband, who passed away last summer, he was responsible for baptizing both of our kids earlier on in life. But they have been so faithful for years and years and years, organizing these trips to Mexico, planning them all on their own, working with the conference down there, the local conferences, to work on the churches they wanted. And that's their daughter up on the ladder. She also has been such great help, and especially this year with Dad no longer with us. She was the one that really helped her mom keep things on track. Both of them are nurses, and both of them babied my broken arm like you wouldn't believe. The only hard part about it was they wouldn't let me do anything because they were afraid I was going to hurt it. Good for them. But it was very good. We really appreciate what Donna and Sandy have done helping us make these programs work each year. This is Linda. She comes every year, and she used to lay block, but she's gotten to where she'd prefer to help paint anymore, and I can't blame her a bit. That laying block is hard stuff. Now here, a little inequity in the jobs given to these people. One person's got a paintbrush, and the other one has a popsicle, and I couldn't help but put the two pictures together because I thought they looked pretty good. But that's Clint. Most of you know Clint Dickerson. And he was on the trip with his wife, Lynette. If you look really close at Clint's popsicle, you'll realize there's a piece of avocado embedded in the ice there. That was avocado ice cream on that popsicle stick. And Clint just had to try it. And so good for Clint. Here's the bathrooms. Clint was my helper on the bathrooms. I, of course, had my arm in a sling, not in a sling, but in a splint. So I wasn't much good with that one hand. But the tiles they gave us were huge. They were 2-foot by 4-foot tiles. Fortunately for us, the floors were done already, but they wanted us to tile the walls in the bathroom. So here you can see one of the bathrooms with the floor down. It had baseboard they had put in when they did the floor tile, so we had to start out by chipping all the baseboard out of there and getting rid of it before we could tile up the walls. If you can't tell, tucked away in the corner there, that's Ben Wiedemann, the bass player in our group. So he was on our trip as well, which is always good to have him. He's there mixing mortar. So Ben did all the mortar mixing, and Clint did all the tile saw work, and I did all the bossing around. And that's how we worked our way through this bathroom project. There we've got the first piece of tile on the wall. That was the hardest one because it had 2 big old holes cut in it that we had to make fit fairly close. Working our way along. 3 men in a tiny little room that stunk all the time was not all that fun, but we made it work. And there we are, making our way up the walls. You can see how big those tiles are. They're just gigantic things. Yes?
I may have missed this, but when did the accident happen?
It was before. It's 3 days before we went to Mexico.
So it didn't happen down there?
Didn't happen down there. Nope, happened at home. And then I went to Mexico. I'd seen urgent care, and they didn't even ever get me in to see a orthopedic surgeon or anything. They just, he's too busy, he can't see you. Well, I'm going to Mexico. Well, have fun. So I went. Saw a surgeon after I got back. He said, he didn't do too much harm to it. It's okay. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's where we've got the tiles all set there. And now I'm starting to grout. I can grout one-handed. I could run the float and I could wipe the sponge, and Clint would sit behind me with a bucket and a couple or 3 sponges, and he'd just keep wrung out sponges to hand to me so I could keep wiping things off. So I did get to do some work. But here's the room with the tile all grouted and the walls all painted, and you can tell it just turned out to be a lot nicer looking little cubby hole than what was there before. So That's what we did. Now, beyond those things, we did some other things. We had a lot of community outreach projects that we did. One of my favorite is what we call door-to-door VBS. And this is something we developed during the COVID era when we couldn't gather a lot of people together in one place. So instead of having a VBS at the church that people would come to every day, we developed this where people would, a group would go out from house to house and spend about 10 or 15 minutes at each house and do 3 or 4 songs and a quick little story and hand out materials for the kids to work on as a craft project after we left, and get some prayer requests written on a little piece of paper that we made into a prayer chain. And it was just, I mean, it's quite an amazing thing. I guess I was going to mention this patio right here is on just off someone's house. It was 2 or 3 miles away from the church, and they hold a branch Sabbath school every week on this little patio on their house. And you see that little doorway that's got a couple of sheets hanging over it and a board. There's someone that resides there that has learned the fine art of pulling that sheet to one side to be able to see who's out there in the church room. And the sheet had just a nice little dirty spot right where that paw goes all the time. So you can tell that was pretty common. This is one of their branch Sabbath school meetings. And they have quite a little crowd that comes over there each time. So it's really nice to see. But we went to their area to do our door-to-door VBS to try to drum up a little more business for their branch Sabbath school. And so here's some of our group getting ready to go out on the VBS. You can see they've got those cards they're holding up in front of them. Those are the words of the songs that we sing, so that the kids and the parents that come out and stand in their yard can see the words and sing along with us. So we're just walking with whatever local neighborhood dogs there are, and there are plenty of them, let me say that. But this is just one of the little alleyways that you walk down to get from the one street to another between the houses. The 2 gals that are, whose faces you can see there, are the 2 that work specifically with that little local branch Sabbath school. And then, of course, this is the one day they let me off work and let me go with them. It's my favorite part of the trip, but they rarely let me quit work and go with the VBS group. But I'm carrying a bag full of goodies for the family. It has beans and rice and a bottle of oil and pencils and kids' underwear and toys and all kinds of things stuffed in that bag. So every home got a bag of goodies like that. And I told you there was nothing green or pretty or anything anywhere, but every once in a while, just out in the road, something like this would pop up. You got to stop and take a picture when you see that. So here we are doing one of the VBSs. They just come and stand together, and for 10 or 15 minutes, we stand and do it. You saw me shaking something here during song service. I think I carried it away already. One of the ladies in the group always carries a bag full of maracas and tambourines and things like that, so we hand them around to the moms and the dads and the kids and everybody, and they all shake these things while we're singing, and it just is a lot of fun to do. When the VBS was done and the parents and the adults would start talking to each other, I always tried to engage the kids in some kind of a conversation. And of course, as you can guess, my Spanish is limited, but I can easily ask them their names and their ages and what grade they're in and if they like to ride a bicycle and all, and that's enough. The kids just want to talk about that stuff. And so it was always fun to be able to talk with the kids after the VBSs were done. So some houses looked fairly nice. You can see like this one's been all stuccoed up pretty nicely. Some of them are just as rough and rugged as can be. These boys were so fun to talk to. They really enjoyed it. You can see them all holding a craft that they had finished from the week before or the day before. They brought their crafts out to show us what they'd done. One of the other outreaches we did is, I think, 3 days. For a couple hours each afternoon, they set a table up out on the sidewalk in front of the church and gave away reading glasses and sunglasses that people have collected through the previous year. And I think over that period of about 6 hours of being out on the sidewalk, they gave away around 75 pair of reading glasses this year. And some of the people were it was just amazing to watch their faces when they put them on. oh, I can see. It's just really fun to watch. Another picture just of them with their little table and display. This was talked about handing out bags of goodies. Each Sabbath we handed out bags to neighborhoods around the churches. We went to 2 different churches while we were there on Sabbath. The one we were working on was too big of a mess for them to even bother meet in the first week we were there. So they met in homes somewhere, and we went off to another church somewhere else. But because we were at 2 different churches, it gave us 2 different neighborhoods to hand out bags. We handed out about 100 bags, I guess, while we were there to different houses around the church neighborhoods. Yeah, and that was fun. When you go up to a house, you don't walk up to the door and knock on it like you would here. You stand out in the street and you just holler, "Hola, hola, hola," till finally somebody comes out, and pretty soon the whole family comes out and meets you in the street, and you talk and do whatever, and then they go back in the house. And it's a very different experience. This is kind of what happened with us as far as where we stayed and what we did off hours, but this would be one of the hotel rooms. We rented it was a small hotel, but we rented the whole second floor of the hotel. I think there was maybe 10 rooms or something like that. And we rented one of them specifically just to use as a kitchen and meeting area. And this is the one that we met in for our worships every day. And we also ate in here. You can see we had a few guys that did bring their instruments on the airplane down, and didn't let me stand with them, but I did get a spot of my own, and I led most of the singing, in fact all of the singing, I guess. And that was kind of how we gathered. We had one of the church members there grew papayas, and he kept bringing us the most gigantic papayas we'd ever seen in our lives. They were also the tastiest papayas I've ever had. I've had papayas that I thought, why do people eat papaya? But these were very, very good. It's amazing what can happen when you get the fruit right. So this morning, this lady, Yolanda is her name, she speaks no English, but her husband was the one doing the tile work, but she comes with our group for the last few years, and this year I was able to talk with her quite a bit. In fact, the other cooks in the kitchen would come to me and say, "Can you ask her how many eggs she needs or whatever?" And so I could find out, the information they needed from her, which was fun for me. But this morning she's making what's called chilaquiles. And that has proven to be one of my favorite Mexican breakfasts. It's kind of like a stack of tortilla chips with a red sauce of some sort poured all over them, and fried eggs put over the top, typically done with runny centers, but I'm not much for runny centers, so I get mine fried hard. But, and then, of course, salsas and one thing or another, but I got to just mention, because you'll get a chuckle out of this, as I age a little, my tummy is starting to get a little rounder than it used to be. And in this picture, before I cropped it a tiny bit, all you could see is my arms and a little ball sticking out there. And I didn't like the ball, so I cropped it out of the picture. Oh, dear. Anyway, here's a chilaquile when you get to look right up close at it. But that's what she was fixing that morning. She was really a good cook. Our other cooks were hard workers, and they put out some good food. This is a typical old haystack meal, but all the stuff they had to put in it was pretty amazing, and tons of avocado, always, and salsas, hot sauces like you wouldn't believe. They were so good. Another one of our meals, this was a breakfast meal. It had potatoes and gravy and eggs, and I don't know what all that went with it, but here they are out shopping. I actually don't have many good pictures of the cooks, but here's a couple of them out there at the grocery store. This grocery store looks very different from a Walmart, but when you go up to the cash register and they light up the little screen where you swipe your credit card, it says Walmart on the screen. So they don't call it Walmart there, they call it Bodega something or other, but nonetheless, it's a Walmart scanning system for the credit card, so there you go. The pastor's wife, the local pastor's wife, was very pregnant. We had a baby shower for her one evening. Everybody brought gifts to share with her. As part of the program, everybody was supposed to stuff a balloon underneath their t-shirt. And I didn't put up the picture of me with my balloon, but that's okay. I did put Ben up there. I thought that Ben and, and her made a pretty fine-looking dancing couple there, but this is the room where we ate our lunches when we were working at the church. It's actually one of the Sabbath school rooms at the church, and local families would bring food every day for us to eat for our lunch. Sometimes we'd get away when we didn't want the cooks to have to cook, and we'd go to a restaurant in town. This is kind of an outdoory type restaurant there that we ate at. Another one here, same thing, kind of an outdoor type of a thing. It's open to the outdoors, let's put it that way at least. So a couple of times that we did that. For recreation, we went out at night and got ice cream. And we did that night after night after night after night. I think I spent more money on ice cream than anything else I bought while I was in Mexico. But anyway, a second time, a third time, not a fourth time. This I just thought was kind of a cool picture. It's Ben and I standing in the doorway of a tourist spot. We did go down one night after being at the restaurant. We went down kind of to a part of town where they had a big art show every Thursday night or something, and so we went into the art show to see what was going on, and that's what we saw that, and I saw that somebody took the picture, and when I saw it later, I thought I'd just include it. One of our Friday nights, we went out to the beach. We were 6 or 8 miles from the water where we were working, so we didn't see the water regularly, but it wasn't that hard to get there. This would be on a Sabbath afternoon. I just found a hill, and I thought, that's a high spot. I want to get up on top of it. So there I went. Jeffrey, the one younger guy, came with me, and we hiked up to the top of the hill. One day, we had one day off that we were free to do what we wanted. There were 4 of us that chose to go down to Cabo San Lucas, and among other things, we took a boat out into the Sea of Cortez and down around the Land's End here that they call it, and around the other side into the Pacific Ocean. So we're right around the very, very southern tip of the Baja there, as south as you can get. In fact, this rock is kind of unique because we're in the Sea of Cortez, but looking through that little hole in the rock, you see the Pacific Ocean on the other side. So it's just right there. It's kind of cool. That's looking at the Pacific side. That particular beach is called Divorce Beach. Don't know the reason for the name, but that's the one they gave it. They won't let you swim off of that beach. They said that the undertow and whatever is so bad, they've had just way too many people that have been swept out to sea and never seen again. So they've closed it to swimming on that side. But if you go through the rocks, there's a little pass through the rocks, and there's a beach on the other side that faces into the Sea of Cortez. This beach they call Lovers Beach for whatever reason. So you got Lovers Beach and Divorce Beach back to back. But here we've got just kind of standing around. But on the Lovers Beach side, you can swim out in the Sea of Cortez. So there's Daryl and a couple of the other people out there swimming in the water, having a little fun with that. And one Sabbath after church, the man on to my left is the man that grew all the papayas. And I'm out on his papaya farm. I and one other person from our group were the only ones privileged to get to go out to his farm for a while. Actually, we had other things in mind, but we were in his car and he wanted us to see it. So we ended up there, whether we'd planned on it or not, but I am most grateful we went. He had the greatest little menagerie of a farm. Everything from all kinds of animals to just papayas and mangoes and lemons and avocados and tamarind, and just he grew everything there. He had about 10 acres, but it was just covered in plants. This is his son and wife and a couple of his little granddaughters. This is another one of his granddaughters. She just really took a liking to me. I, of course, to her. Again, can't talk too much, but it was enough. This picture, I felt like one of the Morrises where I stood head and shoulders taller than everybody else, and it was kind of a unique feeling for me. Anyway, this is the farmer with his wife and their granddaughter, and we just had to get a picture of them. Before we left, he said, "Man, I want one of your t-shirts." So I got ready to go. I just peeled my t-shirt off and gave it to him. Had to go home without one, but it wasn't too far to go. So yeah, it was fun. Later in the Sabbath afternoon, we took a hike up on another mountain. Here, from this peak, you can see the Sea of Cortez out there past a bit of the city. And of course, I got the three monkeys here doing the see no evil, whatever, you know what I'm talking about, see no evil. The landscape up on that mountainside, once you got out of town, looks so much like Arizona. Even the blooming Acatia up there is not much different from what I could see. On our last Sabbath there, we got to meet in the finished church. And these are just a few shots of the congregation with us inside. And lively bunch of people. This is during children's story, and believe it or not, Darrell Haney told the children's story that day. He had to have an interpreter, of course, but he's quite a storyteller, which I was not aware of before this trip. So I saw him do a couple of times. We sang music. Because I couldn't play a guitar, I did kind of like I did today here with the little shaker thing, only I didn't have that nice little egg that came from Carl and Becky's Sabbath school classroom this morning. I just had a bottle of Advil, and I shook that. So, just want you to... Anyway, it's fun to see them singing. They made that room really ring when they started singing. Of course, it helps to have a metal roof and concrete block walls and nothing deadening the sound anywhere. It just really made a noise. The first Sabbath we were there, I told you we went to a different church. And on our way to that church, I saw this electrical array that I thought somebody would surely get a kick out of seeing this. That's the way everything looked around there. They put all their electric meters in one spot, and then they just strung a separate wire to every house down the road off from these electric meters. And the people at the far end of the road, you know, they had greatly reduced power, but that's what they had. That's the way it went. This is the second church that we went to. These people were very happy. They've not had this church there very long. The wood that the church is built out of is at least on its third church now. Every time the first church built something, and when they actually got their block work done, they took the wood down and gave it to somebody else, and they built a church. And then they got a church built and took it down, and now this church is using the wood again to have another church out of it. And the whole sides of the church, when you see it during the week, are all covered up with the OSB. But come Sabbath morning, they unscrew it all and take it off so that the breeze can blow through and they can have their meeting. And after church is over, they put it all back on again and screw it all shut tight so that they can keep their chairs and stuff inside for the next week. And apparently they didn't even have a bathroom there until they heard we were coming, and they threw this little outhouse up out back just for the gringos to use. So I don't know what they did normally, but now they have a bathroom at their church, and they're hoping for better, but this is where they're at this moment. The Sabbath school wing, if you want to call it, was under a tarp out back. And of course, that's where I spent most of my time, was with the kids in their little Sabbath school class. It was always fun. During church time, this man and his daughter sang Mas Allá del Sol, whatever that song is, you know, the most well-known Spanish hymn that anybody knows. It was a very, very nice rendition they did. Our group sang as well. We did the song in Spanish that it's called No hay lugar, but it means there is no place that is higher than to be at the feet of Jesus, is the song that we sang. Kind of interesting dichotomy of terms when you think about it. But Pastor Hugo gave the sermon. Donna did the translating. I told you that her parents were the ones that did all the organizing. I don't think I mentioned that they had been missionaries in Colombia. And Donna was actually born in Colombia and grew up speaking Spanish. So it was very easy for her to do the translating, except every once in a while it's fun. She'll all of a sudden he'll say something and she'll say something, and like one time I said, Donna, could you repeat that in English? Because she said it in Spanish just like he did. She'll laugh, oh man, she'll come back with something in English. Anyway, they had a lot of people there this particular day, so they had set a number of chairs up outside of the church area so that they could look in and see what was going on. This is the plan they have for building a new church. And the picture looks much prettier than the new church may ever look. That's just not the way they build churches. But the idea is to build something that basically fits the property lines all the way around their property. And they don't have any yard, but they have a building that fits. Now that may sound like it's big, but this church building is only like 24 by 60 feet. So it's not even nearly as big as this. I mean, it might be longer than this room, but not nearly as wide as this room. And that's their property. So that's what they've got to work with. We were there to kind of check this out because our leader was thinking this is where she would like to come next year and work on putting a church together. And so as we were there, we got to talking about, where they are in their finances and such as that. They are still trying to pay the property off, and they actually had a balloon payment. They bought the property from a private individual who just happened to be an Adventist. She did give them a very good price on it, but she had paid for part of it already, and she wanted a balloon payment to get out of her part of it, and then they could just take over her payments. And that balloon payment was due 6 days from when we were there, and they still at that point owed about $2,000. And between their little congregation, they're usually able to come up with about $200 a month to put on the payments toward the property. And it's like, we don't know how we're going to do it, but we're trying. So they took up a special offering, and with everybody there, they managed to get about $1,000 in the special offering. So that was halfway toward their payoff. Following the church service, those of us from the States got together just in a little huddle and said, what can we do to help them out? Surely we can help them meet that $1,000 one way or another. And so, let's start by just taking up another offering just amongst ourselves. So we passed a little cup around, or a bowl it was. And before we counted it, Clint says, let's just pray about it before we count it. So we had prayer. And then we counted the money. They needed $1,000, and in that bowl was $1,005. Just made it. Whether there was that much in it before the prayer or not, we'll never know. But it was quite a story anyway. So we gave that to them, and we got the notice a few days later that they had paid off their balloon, and now they still have about $11,000 left to pay on the property that they plan to take 4 years to pay off. But we want to build a church there next year, and we don't want them to be building on a piece of property they don't own outright. So it's our goal to try to raise, by the way, that's the bowl of money we prayed over. I forgot to put that up so you could see it. But our goal is to try to raise between ourselves and anybody else that wants to help this $11,000 so that we can get their property paid off right away and can start raising money and preparing toward a building project next year. So that's kind of our goal. That's not entirely my reason for talking to you here right now, but you're listening, so you can think about that. I showed you a picture of the plans. More typically, a building kind of looks like this down there, and that's about as far as they ever get with most of them. Sometimes they'll get stuccoed. Always, they leave rebar sticking out of the roof because they think someday I might want to add a second floor on here. So there's always rebar on the top of the houses just in case they put a second floor on. And seems to be just fine for them. Again, you can see all those power lines. Every one of those is a private line for one house somewhere down the road coming off from that big stack of meter bases. So here they are putting the walls back on the church, getting ready to close it up. And so anyway, Maranatha Church would be most grateful for any help they get. I'm going to do a little video now that was prepared by someone else. It takes about 3 minutes, and then we are done
It's called
for
Mission
today.
Adventures, and we are here from Washington and Oregon states. And we have now come down to Baja California. We're in a town called San Jose, and we're in a little area that's called Vista Hermosa. We came to this church because after visiting several churches, we picked this one because they needed help here at the church. They have spawned a church plant from this church, and so a lot of the people that could work here and keep things up have gone to this church plant. And so we felt that they were in a lot of need, and as we looked around, we saw a lot of projects that could happen here. Well, you know, we have the best team this year. We have 17, had 17, 2 have left. There's 15 people, and everybody has their little corner where to work. And everybody's been working so hard, and we have accomplished a lot. We have painted the inside of the church. We've remodeled the baptistry. We have redone the bathrooms. Everybody's working in their own little space, and we have accomplished everything we came to accomplish. We were on the other side of the peninsula in San Lucas, but we were in a little area that the church is named Maranatha, and they're all excited because this is a brand new church for them. But brand new means that they got the boards from another church that was doing some remodeling, and so they got the plywood boards, and they came and brought them to their church on the top of their cars, and they put them all together and made a little church. And they're so proud, and those plywood boards are all screwed up, and so they, on Sabbath morning, they unscrew a couple of them on both sides, and the air goes through, and that's their air conditioning, and it works quite well until it gets really, really hot. They don't have real air conditioning, they don't have electricity, they don't have water. But they are so happy. God is leading and guiding, help them find this land. And they are just reaching out to the community. They get clothes that they give away. They make food for the community. They do all kinds of outreach. This is going to be our project for next year. So we invite you to come along, or else you can help give some money if you would like, so that we can work a little bit faster and get this church started to go up. What they did was really smart. They put their little church in the center of the lot so that they can start building around this little church. So on both sides there's enough room. It's a very small lot, but there's enough room so they can start putting the walls up when they have some money. But right now they're still trying to pay for their lot. Oh, you know, these trips do something for you inside. You come down and you find out how the other part of the world lives. And so it just changes everything. And then you see the people that are so much, they don't have what we have, but yet they're happy and they don't care, and they live happily. And it's the blessing for us to come and do what we can to help them out.
Well, I hope you enjoyed your trip to Mexico. I remember some finishing up projects in this church that took quite a bit of time and effort on the part of a lot of people. That was Oh, you're very welcome. This is another one of my special little projects, but this one's very, very, very dear to my heart. I'm just so happy to be able to be here and be a part of this church with you. Let's bow our heads and pray together as we finish the service today. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for the blessing of being a part of a family that's worldwide. And thank you for my part that I got to go and meet another part of that family and introduce them to the family here. I pray that you will bless the church in Vista Hermosa. I pray that you will help them to be a real light in their neighborhood. I pray for the project next year with the Maranatha Church on the other side of the peninsula. I pray you'll help us as we work toward preparing to get things ready for a project then. I pray that you'll be with us here in Long Creek. May this church and these people be a light in this community as well. I thank you for the influence they've had on so many for so long. I pray that you'll be with us all and keep us in your care. In Jesus' name, amen.